Welcome back to On Second Thought. What's a godly man?
You are not allowed to ask my daughter out on a date via text.
What's a godly woman?
As women be pouring into our husbands, so many women feel like they have this huge pressure to do everything, all the things.
All right. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for joining us for On Second Thought. Jim and Stephanie Perdue here with you. Thanks so much to you who are listening and letting your friends know about this podcast. Today is a special day because Stephanie gets to lead this podcast and I get to take a nap. Because isn't that what you said last week? I was going to talk about what it means to be a godly man. You were going to take a nap.
Yes, but you didn't let me take a nap.
Well, you decided to give some incredible wisdom and insight. And so, but today I'm just going to relax.
Things I don't need are words of affirmation. I'm like, we'll just press stop and walk out.
Because when I say
the game is over.
When I say you're beautiful, you say
we've already yes.
What? You
Thank
say,
you.
No, you don't. That is not what you say.
You don't say
okay.
I'm beautiful. No,
oh,
I'm just kidding.
Wow. Do you have recorded where I called her hot earlier, Austin? We got that.
Kidding.
We got that recorded. Thank you very much. Insert
so
here.
Yes.
There it is. Okay. So anyway, so last
week you gave up on that a long time ago.
2-part mini-series in the second season of On Second Thought. Because last week we talked about what does it mean to be a godly man? What is biblical manhood? And this week we're going to talk about what does it mean to be a godly woman? What does biblical womanhood look like? And
what does it look like?
Well, I know that you have been preparing and studying and looking at this all week long to get ready.
Why do you throw me under the bus like that?
No, that's encouraging.
No,
like
it's
you've
not.
been preparing, so they are.
So if it's terrible, y'all, I'm a terrible studier.
No, it's going to be great.
She worked all week, and that's all you're getting.
It's going to be great. You're going to do a great job. So what does it mean to be a biblical woman, a godly woman? We talked last week about the husband's responsibility as the spiritual leader and what that looks like. And today, I have a feeling we're going to have to talk about the S word. Submit.
Maybe.
What does biblical submission look like in the context of a godly marriage? So, you ready to take it from here? The world is waiting to hear what you have to say.
They're really not.
Yes, they are.
All 12 people.
More than 12. We just heard from Austin. There's more than 12.
More than 12.
Uh-huh. And when they find out you're leading this episode, it's going to be like exponential growth. You're the star of the show.
I'm really ready for this to be over.
All
already.
right, go ahead.
You
love
just
being the
killing
center
me.
of attention.
I know, you're killing me. I'm like, oh, gosh, could we just go home, please?
You're going to do great.
So I guess why I'm not nearly as good at this as you are. This is why you're there on Sundays, and I'm not. I guess part of where I want to start is to go back to last week where we were, and that everything you said last week, I feel like you 100% strive to live and model a godly life, like what it means to be a godly man, and you do a great job. And I didn't get a whole lot of time to prepare last week. So as I was thinking, I was like, all the things he said are what he lives. And like you do spend time like reading the word every day. And I don't ever laugh about it because I think it's great. But it's just not how I work. Like you were very systematic. Like you're going to read every day. You're going to have a plan because you like to check it off. And I'm like, let's be a little more like not as rigid or strict. But it doesn't mean I don't love reading the Bible as much as you do. Right. I just do it differently than you.
Different way.
I also like to listen to the Bible while I'm running, which is not something you would do. So
my mind would wander if I'm listening to something. My mind would wander.
Well, it makes the run not so bad because I'm focused on what they're saying.
There's no way to make a run not bad. There's no way to make a run not bad.
Well, anyway, all of that to say is to be a godly husband, a godly man, whatever that looks like, it's because you stay close to God. And that is the main goal. And I think that's where I even want to start when we're talking about being a woman of God. Biblical womanhood is it's us staying close to the Lord, first of all. Because if we don't have that relationship, then we're just a woman. And our goal is to be a godly woman. And it takes being faithful in growing close to the Lord. But also, going back to last week and what we were, just different things that we were saying, as a godly husband and a man, I think that you are the provider. Like, I know that you're going to provide for us. You're going to work hard to do that. I don't ever have to question that. I know that you're sexually faithful to me as, husband and wife. And those are things that are important. Like, your desire is to love the Lord and love me and to love our kids, and you love our church.
Yeah. I think one of the things that is important in talking about being a godly man, being a godly husband and a godly dad, some guys may listen and say, man, that I just, I can never do that. You got to be perfect to do this. And, of course, nobody's perfect. Jesus is and walked this earth perfectly, but nobody else does. And so I don't want to put forward this, unattainable standard that if you're going to be this godly man, you got to always do everything right and great and da-da-da. Like, that's not what we're saying at all. Kind of like what I said last week, like, integrity doesn't mean you're perfect. You're going to mess up. You're going to sin. You're going to stumble. But integrity means you're that same person, right? Wherever you are. And so for the guys out there that heard that last week or that are hearing this now, like, it's small steps every single day towards faithfulness, godly leadership, loving your wife like Christ loved the church, especially if there's right now this conflict or frustration or anger or these sorts of things. You've got to be careful, if you're not in a healthy relationship already, to get healthy so that you can then grow in these ways. And sometimes the way to get healthy is to follow God's model. Love your wife like Christ loved the church. And then watch how she responds to that. And I think that sometimes, even if we were to act like, well, I don't feel like I love her right now, or I don't feel like I love him right now, you take a week and act like it and watch how your actions will start to change your feelings, and then how that changes your spouse. I think one of the things I wanted to make sure after listening to last week was, wherever you are as a husband, start now. Wherever you are, you could be, an inch away from it, or you could be 1,000,000 miles away from it. That godly leadership and faithful husband, start now, and you can grow, and God will help you.
Well, and that's kind of where I started. Like, as a godly woman, I must first know God.
Right.
And we're not perfect. So, like, ask some questions. Look back over, we're starting a new year. Look back over the last year and ask yourself, how am I growing? Like, in what areas am I growing? Am I growing closer to the Lord? In what areas is my heart growing towards him? We talked about submit, but am I submitting to the Lord and what he has for me? Because it's hard to submit to anybody else if you haven't first submitted to what God says and what his word says that we're to do. That's right. That's the first step. So then everything else kind of gets easier if you can first know God and know what he has. We get our identity from him. And the more we know him, we know we're going to look more like Jesus, and that makes it easier, even when it's hard.
You're not going to be able to fulfill the role God has for you if you're not first in the role of child of God, right?
Right.
So first and
that's
foremost,
where our identity comes.
I'm a person in my relationship with Christ, right? We talked about that. I'm a person in my relationship with Christ. I'm a partner to my spouse. I'm a parent to my kids. And then, for me, I'm a pastor of this church, and it has to be in that order, right? So you won't be able to be a godly woman if you're not walking with the Lord. I won't be able to be a godly husband if I'm not walking with the Lord.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people get caught up on submission, especially women, but I think it's because, like you said last week, there are a lot of overbearing and abusive type of relationship, but you've never looked at me and said, submit, woman. Then
last week we talked about getting throat punched.
Yes.
Right.
I mean,
I might have got throat punched.
But I mean, I can't even imagine. First of all, I can't imagine you going, submit, woman. And because I don't answer to woman, but
it's an endearing term in the Bible.
It is.
But these days, maybe not so much.
Yes. So yeah, you can't snap your fingers at me or call me woman. That'll get me going.
I do think let's, and I know you're headed somewhere with this, but if there is a healthy relationship, right? If I'm going to be a healthy leader, I think the same thing's true when pastoring a church. If I have to constantly get up before the people at Second Baptist Church and say, hey, don't you remember? I'm the pastor. I'm in charge. Follow where I lead. I think that speaks to my lack of leadership ability. So if I'm constantly frustrated in my relationship with my wife saying, hey, I'm the husband, I'm the leader, you have to submit, I need to look at my life and say, what's the problem here that she's not lovingly submitting to my leadership? So maybe there's something, because a lot of times if that happens, it's always going to be, well, he will do this or she will do that. Well, turn towards yourself and see.
Yeah. Well, and nobody wants to think about themselves, analyze themselves and see what they're doing wrong until it's completely miserable.
Right.
So I think you should keep short accounts. In that 1 Corinthians, ask for forgiveness, talk about things more. But anyway, all of that to say, I want to be obedient to what God has for me to do, because that's important. And serving, I say serving you, it's not like, oh, can I bring you your whatever? I'm not a dainty person. It's just not my personality. I'm not necessarily a sweet person. I know that about myself. You know that about me too. But
got a little spice.
I do, but I'm not nobody really ever says, man, Stephanie is so sweet.
But you're also not mean.
No, I'm not mean. But we do know that if people say Stephanie's sweet, they don't really know
when
me.
Somebody comes to me and they say, so literally this happened at a Georgia Baptist convention. Somebody said, how is your precious bride?
Stop.
And I said, you don't know her, do you? And I wasn't saying that you're not wonderful and amazing, but I do know, number one, you don't like being called my bride.
I don't. I was your bride one time.
Day. Now you're my wife. Yeah. And then
that's just a personal thing for me. I know there are a lot of people that call their brides their brides.
And the brides might love it, but
yes,
I know that about you.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, you don't really like to be called sweet or precious. And it's not because you don't think that those are good things. That's just, you are a little bit more matter of fact. You're not a wallflower. You're not going to, yes, you are an introvert, but you're not somebody that wants to be this quiet introvert, just kind of out, yes. No, I don't ever care about my opinion or my thoughts.
Yes. I feel like I'm a kind person.
Yes.
I'm not necessarily, I don't come across as sweet. And that's okay. I know who I am. I know
how
God made me.
Person,
yeah, I know how God made me, and I'm okay with that.
Different personalities for different people, and that's great. And one of the things I think as a pastor's wife that has really served us well in our relationship is that you are not one of those people that think, oh my gosh, I've got to make all these people at Second Baptist Church happy with me. So a lot of times pastors' wives will wear that pressure of, oh, I got to sing in the choir and I got to play piano and I got to lead the ladies ministry and I got to do all this for my husband and I got to do all this for my kids. And then it becomes this very daunting task and this almost unwelcomed position of, I got to do all this stuff. I also are who you are, and
I am, and we have a great church that does not put all of those expectations.
And you serve. I would like everyone to know, when they see you driving away on Sunday mornings, you're not driving away to leave or come back when I preach. You drive across the street to teach the high school senior girls.
Yeah, and we may have said I serve when you're not preaching.
Yes,
so that's where I serve,
and I appreciate that.
Yes. So moving on. A lot of times, and I think you talked about last week about Ephesians where it says, wives submit.
Yes.
But it's also in Colossians.
It is.
But what comes first is that the husband needs to be gentle and not make your wife bitter. And I was like, oh, see, that comes first. Look at there. And it makes the submission easier. So if you are a husband who always has your wife bitter, or she's just working all the time, it's hard, and she then becomes a nag.
Yeah.
And then you're like, that woman never stops, and you have so many bad things to say. But on the reverse side, as women, we've been led to believe that we have to do everything. In Proverbs 31, there's a long list of things to be a Proverbs 31 woman and to be all of those things. But I don't know if we have to be all of those things at one time.
Right.
Or in one season of our life.
I also think Proverbs 31 almost sets up an ideal, right? And so sometimes that's hard to live up to. And you're talking about the order in Ephesians and Colossians. That order's there on purpose, right? So God not only gives the assignments on purpose, but he starts with a husband every single time. Every single time he starts with a husband. So the husbands out there who are having a hard time in their marriage or frustrated with your wife, one of the first things I would say is, we're going to start with you. Well, you don't understand. My problem is with her. No, we're going to start with you, because it's your leadership that will eventually turn her heart towards the Lord and towards your faithful, loving leadership of your wife and of your family.
Yeah, I mean, and that makes it, but a lot of men, there becomes pride issues, and they don't want to admit that they've done anything wrong, or they've been a certain way for so long, and they don't see an immediate turnaround in the woman.
Right.
And so they're just like, well, forget it. She's just never going to.
It
may take long. It may take just as long to win her heart back as it took for you to lose her heart.
And I can't tell you how many times I've counseled couples, and let's just pretend like the wife is bitter and the husband is willing to do whatever to reconcile this relationship, and we'll meet over a long period of time. And so the wife's heart begins to change. But by that time, the husband is now bitter. I've been doing this for so long, and I just forget it, right? And so that's one way the enemy gets to kind of, and so you have to be patient. You have to be methodical. You got to be systematic with it. I would say The Love Dare is a great book. So if you say, man, I don't know what to do with my marriage right now, I don't even know how to begin to love her, that movie, Fireproof, and then the book that came, The Love Dare, it's a great way to learn, once again, how to put your attention, your affection on your spouse and start winning her heart again. And that's a great way to begin.
Yes. So just talking about being a godly woman, what does that look like? For me, I have said I want to love the Lord. I want to love you. And I love being a mom. And I love, that's, ever since before we got married, I knew that I wanted to take care of my children. And it doesn't always work like that for everybody. And it's not always everybody else's dream, but it was mine. And that's why, I take care of the home. And I think some husbands can get frustrated with women who maybe are idle at home. They really don't do anything. But that's part of, the Proverbs 31, is to take care of your home, to take care of your husband, take care of the things that you can take care of. And, take some of that burden off of him if he is the provider, if he is going out and providing for your family, especially if you do have the blessing of being able to stay home. You may stay home for 5 years, you may stay home forever, or you may work throughout. It could be in seasons. I mean, even the Proverbs 31 woman, she worked, but it doesn't necessarily mean she worked all the time.
Right.
But you have to pray about that as a couple and see where the Lord leads you. I wanted to be there. I wanted, that's my greatest job, quote unquote, even though the kids say I don't work. But one in particular.
You know who you are.
Yes, you do. But that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to pour my working years, quote unquote, into my children.
And we knew that.
Yes.
This was our first date, the first time we hung out,
Yes.
knowing we liked each other.
Yes.
We kind of talked about a little bit of all of this to make sure we were on the same, that. I think we were at the stage where we were kind of done with dating. We had both read a book, get rid of dating.
We're going to do a dating podcast later.
Oh, well, but my point was, we talked about all that stuff, and neither of us were at a point where it was just we'll just date and see where this thing goes. We were ready to find a spouse. And so early on, we talked about, hey, how many kids do you want? We both wanted a bunch. And I would say 5 is a bunch. Yep. These days, especially, people look at you and you're like, you got 5 kids? What's going on? Yeah. We both wanted a bunch. And we both wanted you, when we had kids, we both agreed that you would stay home and take care of the kids. That's what you wanted to do. And I was going to do everything I could to provide for that. And so those are things you need to discuss early on. We'll do dating later.
And there's a cost associated with having one person stay home. There's a financial cost there. But to me, there was a cost on the other side if I worked.
Right.
But So for us, this is what we wanted. I wanted to be the one at home with my
Couples
kids.
ask about that now, and I'm like, look, whatever you do, talk about it ahead of time and agree on it. We talk about these things in premarital counseling because I even ask them, how many kids do you want? Will the wife work, after y'all have kids? If so, when will she go back to work? Like all these questions, because a lot of times in a marriage, it's not necessarily the big things that'll trip you up, but it's unmet, unrealized, or unexpressed expectations. I thought it was going to be this way. Well, I thought you would go back to work. How are we going to do this? And then trying to figure that out. Just agree on it ahead of time.
Well, yes. And moving on a little bit, in being able to work or stay home, for me, it was to never bring shame to our family, to you, in my words or in my actions. We've already discussed how I trust you fully, but I feel like you should be able to trust me fully too. Mm-hmm. When I'm not with you or if I'm out, like trusting that I'm not going to speak poorly about you. I'm not going to be out
there acting a fool somewhere.
Yeah, I'm not going to act a fool somewhere. in my actions and what I say and how I dress and the places that I go and the things that I do, it's not going to bring shame to myself. It's not going to bring shame and dishonor to our family. It's not going to embarrass us or, I don't like to embarrass my kids. Like that's a goal for some parents. It was never a goal of mine to embarrass my children.
And that's like death for you is being embarrassed.
Yes.
You hate being embarrassed.
Well, and I told them my goal is to never embarrass you, but you better not embarrass me.
Oh yeah.
So
because if you embarrass us, we're going to embarrass you.
I said game on. But so I feel like, but a lot of that comes from knowing the Bible, knowing what God has expected of us as women and what his word says so that we don't bring shame to our family. And I say shame, but just in your actions. When we had been married, I don't know, because I don't do math. We know that. But around 35, when we were around 35,
mm-hmm.
people that were our age, it just seemed like everyone was getting divorced.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is it? And I was like, they're bored.
Mm.
They have not spent time developing as individuals. Well, maybe they spent all their time developing as individuals. And then they just were falling apart. They had gotten them married. They had done all the things. They'd had all the kids. And now they were just done.
Yeah. And they hadn't poured into their relationship.
Yeah, they had not.
Another.
And this isn't necessarily about marriage, but we need to, as women, be pouring into our husbands and vice versa. And just, having that trust that comes from that's ultimately what happened. Like a lot of the women were trying to find something exciting on the side or and vice versa for the husband because it wasn't exciting at home. And so their actions and their words and everything were leading them all astray.
Let me go back to something you said just a second ago about you've tried your best not to bring shame or embarrassment to, or even cause drama, right? And so there are moments you've looked at me and said, I would like to put this on Instagram. I would like to put this on Instagram. Or
I've typed up stuff
on Facebook.
I've typed
on social
up
media.
stuff and I've sent it to you.
And you said, can I say this? And sometimes I think you're joking because it's probably not a good idea to say it. But then other times it's like, you can put that up. Or somebody might interpret that the wrong way. And so as a pastor and a first lady, as a pastor and a pastor's wife, there is a sense in which we're held to a higher standard. I don't want anybody to turn away from Jesus because of my hot take on social media, right? Mm-hmm. And same is true for you. You don't want anybody to say, well, I'd never go to that church or I would never, follow that God because she said something about ABC or XYZ. And so that is an example, I think, of practical submission. Hey, because there are moments you're joking, but there are moments you're like, I kind of want to put this up. What do you think? And I'm like, maybe say it a little differently or,
You're much nicer with your words. I'm just blunt. Let's just throw it out there.
Well, and
I'm like, let's light the fire and see how it burns. But you're like, no, probably shouldn't let it burn. I'm like,
because I
maybe
spend a lot of my time putting out fires. So.
Maybe we should let it all burn.
All right, you have a book today, and that book is Disciplines of a Godly Woman.
Which was Barbara Hughes, who is the wife.
She's the wife of R. Kent Hughes.
Yes, but there's actually a newer one out than this one. But what's neat is that she goes through her entire book, so she starts with the gospel, but her entire book is, she has broken it down into different sections. So it's the disciplines of your soul, your character, your relationships, your ministry. But almost every chapter is titled Submission something.
Oh, wow.
Submission's Lifeline, Submission Celebration, Submission's Education.
I didn't know that. I've never read that book.
Well, darn.
Maybe I should.
Like submission in God's family. So it's just, she does a great job. Not to knock anybody that's some more recent writers or whatever, but she's just really grounded.
And tell our audience, the multiple thousands upon thousands of people that love hearing your podcast, you have another author that you really love.
Oh, I like Donna Gaines.
You think you love the way Donna Gaines writes?
I do. I like Donna Gaines.
She has some devotion books and some books on being a wife and being a mom and those sorts of things too that you've really
She's
enjoyed.
very grounded. I feel like she's very grounded. So anyway, but I feel like those are two. That's a really good book to just learn about the disciplines of what it looks like to be a godly woman in every area of your life.
Yes.
And I said earlier that I think since like feminism really started, there's been 3 big, huge waves of feminism. And now we're in this one where it's like so many women feel like they have this huge pressure to do everything, all the things, and be great at all of them. And some of that comes from social media. And we compare everything to, y'all, my house is dirty at times. It doesn't look like Instagram.
We have 5 kids.
Yes. And like.
And only one clean husband.
Only one clean husband. And that, and the expectations, like, you have to work, you have to keep a clean house, you have to have perfect kids, you have to do this. My kids aren't perfect, my house is not clean. I don't have a full-time job, but, and I'm homeschooling, so.
But you spend a lot, like, full-time job, good gracious, you spend a lot of time on the road.
Yes, I'm driving them people
kids
all the
here
time.
And there. You enjoy teaching at the gym and doing various classes and things like that. So it's not like you're not at home twiddling your fingers.
Right.
We don't let a whole lot of moss grow on the stone. Right?
No,
we are rolling.
I have a lot of things going on. And that, in the Proverbs, it talks about being strong. You talked about the gym. I do think it's important for women too. You can add this to your long list of things that you need to do. But taking care of yourself. Like, we are supposed to take care of our bodies. We're supposed to move our bodies. I'm not saying everybody has to like working out like I do. It's not for everybody, but we are called to move our bodies, to be strong. It actually says that there are reasons why we need strong bodies. We may have to take care of people. We have to pick people up. And I'm big on this because women think that they can't pick up heavy weights, but yet you hold toddlers. You carry all the groceries in one trip. You
don't want to go back.
You can lift more than 10 pounds.
Yes.
100%. And know that you can do that. But so I think we can do a lot of things, but we don't have to do it all in every season. Like, I could barely breathe when I had 4 kids, 5 and under. I mean, you're not sleeping. Your hair is bad.
You're not really even able to think.
Yes, and you don't think clearly, for sure. And some days it's just like, I made it through today.
And when you're driving, I literally remember like getting earplugs one time when we were driving somewhere. I just put the earplugs in. I was like, this is going to be really, really rough. Here we go.
Yeah, well, and I mean, so all of that to say, we need to be a blessing to our family. And even if you're not married yet, you can still grow in all of the different areas of your life and see where God has you. Like, make a goal, make a list, plan it out, check it out, like, and have somebody keep you accountable. Like, these are the areas that I need to work on, and have somebody keep you accountable, because God has given us all an assignment here, and we don't necessarily know how that works, because one day either you'll be gone or I'll be gone. And if you're gone,
gone. I'm gone first.
But I still have, one of us will still be left here with an assignment from the Lord.
Right.
A job to do. And so spend time, developing yourself as a woman or as a man, and grow closer to Him. Yeah. That's ultimately what we have.
All starts with your relationship with the Lord. And then your primary relationships with God, your primary earthly relationship is with your spouse. And so, that has to be where your priorities are. So so you did great, by the way. Thank you for leading the podcast today. It's going to be our number one listened to podcast. And secondly,
it's probably not because I wasn't funny today.
You are always funny, and always beautiful. Shut up, but that's okay. I was just said that for you. Secondly, we've got a few questions. So thanks to those of you that have sent in some questions. secondfamily.church/thoughts. Appreciate you sending in some questions. Miss Hannah's going to ask us some of the questions that you guys have sent in.
Yes. So first one, who drives better?
I drive faster. Is that better?
I mean, yeah.
I basically...
You drive all the time because you get sick.
I do get sick. I do think if you're talking about speeding tickets, somebody in this room has more speeding tickets than somebody else, but we're not going to mention any names.
I'm not throwing anybody under the bus.
Neither am I, Stephanie. And so, no, I drive most of the time, and we're both fairly safe drivers. I would say she's probably a better driver than me.
I'm maybe more cautious.
If you guys were to run a mile, who would win the race?
Why would I want to run a mile? Why would I even care if
I really feel like you're faster than I am.
Okay.
I would probably run the mile and you would gas out at like halfway.
If we're running a 100-yard dash, that's one thing. But I don't even know if I can run a mile right now. That was not one of my goals. That was a joke, in the beginning of the year to run a 4-minute mile. I don't run distances a lot. So I play racquetball, and so I'm like short burst, hit the racquetball. Stephanie would win. I would die halfway through. I'd quit. I would not want to run a mile.
That one time, I don't know if we've ever told this story.
The story of when you forced me to run a 5K?
Oh.
You tricked me into it.
No, I did not trick you into this.
She did.
No, I'm talking about when we go to new cities. I like to run the cities. And it doesn't bother me. Like, I don't mind just going and running the streets of
downtown Los Angeles.
I don't really care. It doesn't bother me.
Downtown Los Angeles.
Again, I don't have a face that says, come steal me.
It doesn't matter. It's downtown Los Angeles.
So, anyway, I'm like, I'm going to run because I like to see the cities.
And I said, you're not going to run without me. Not in downtown Los Angeles.
I was like, I'm running 3 miles. He goes, not without me. I'm like... Okay, here we go. So we get like a certain distance. I don't even remember
Probably
where.
Not even a mile.
He said, I'm going to go sit on this bench and you're going to run by me so I can see you the whole time.
Don't go out of my sight. Don't get out of my sight.
This is not helpful to me. Now he just lets me go run the cities. He watches me on my watch.
Just have to trust the Lord. Amen.
If you die, you die.
You're in God's hands now.
Yes, because I'm going to die trying to chase you.
One of us has to live.
Yes. So anyway, that's
next question.
The running story.
Also, speaking of sports, Stephanie, you wanted to edit your answer last week
about
the Olympic sports.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how I missed this. Maybe because I didn't know this question was coming. But this week I saw gymnastics like on the TV and I'm like, that's what I've wanted to do my whole life. Why did I not know that? I wanted to be an Olympic gymnast.
Olympic gymnast.
Like my whole life.
Really?
Yes.
Well, there you go.
I just never was a gymnast.
Did you ever take gymnastics at all?
No, I was a little too chubby.
Okay.
Wasn't my sport.
Okay.
What is y'all's most memorable date?
November 23rd, 2002.
Hey, that's the day we got married.
Yeah, there you go.
Immediately when she asks me the most memorable date, I think of that scene in Miss Congeniality where the girl's like, April 25th, because...
Not too hot, it's not too cold. What was our most memorable date? Probably, I don't know. We liked the Biltmore. That was a fun weekend.
That was a neat trip, yeah.
I was very pregnant with Judd.
It was a baby moon.
Yes.
I didn't know what that was, but I took you on a baby moon. And you don't like surprises, but I totally surprised you with that trip, and it was a score. Like, we did good.
Yep, that was it.
Okay. So someone asked which kid is most like Pastor Jim and which kid is most like Stephanie.
Whichever one behaves that day is more like me, and whichever one is sassy is more like their mama. Isn't that about right?
That's probably about right.
No,
that's
not
probably
true.
right.
That's not true.
I think we see our characteristics run through all of them. So some days I'm like, that is your child.
Yes.
And he goes, that is your child.
Yes. I think it's like a mix in every one of them. And it just depends.
But what's really weird is when you see DNA come from aunts and uncles
yes
into your children, you're like, huh, neither one of us do that.
Or
but that
grandparents
is like,
even.
yeah, like that's like your uncle does that.
Yeah.
And that's a very interesting thing to see in your kids. But yeah.
Anybody sassy, we know where they get that from.
Probably. Probably. But we did tell it I spent time teaching the kids sarcasm. So
that is one of your spiritual gifts.
So I don't
sarcasm.
know. But yeah. So if y'all see that, that's probably more me. I mean, the more kind spirited children are Jim, for sure.
See, sometimes they can be kind, and then sometimes they can. I mean, it's kids, so
yeah, they're kids.
Okay, last question.
The competitive part, we do have one kid that's super competitive, though. I'm not telling who.
And that
They
comes
won't know
from
who. That comes from you. 100%. I would just let you win. Doesn't bother me at all.
So last question. Who is your favorite kid?
Bless it.
This has been asked twice.
By
on
our
Instagram.
children.
I know exactly which two will ask this question all the time.
and the one that thinks he's the favorite all the time.
Yes.
Which is
he likes to ask that question.
He likes to think he's the favorite,
Yes.
but I think this is from a different kid. I
Yes.
think it's from one of your daughters.
Yes, she likes to ask this
She
question.
likes to ask this question
Yes.
too.
So the rule has always been whoever sleeps the latest
Is your favorite?
is my favorite for the day. And that was definitely a way to make them sleep late in the mornings, or at least stay in their rooms and be quiet until I was ready to see them. I was like,
you said when they were little, I need to go to sleep and renew my love for my children.
Yes.
And then when I see them in the morning, I'll be happy to see
Yes,
them
yes,
again.
yes. But I mean, I know that I'm not a good mother before 7:00.
Oh, come on.
And
You
so
can do it.
I was always like, they could not wake up until 7. So any
Well, you
kid
told
past
Jake
7,
when he was little, you can't wake up till there's a 7 on the clock. And like one day he comes out at 3:47.
yes.
And we're like, no, the 7 has to be on the left side.
yes. But so anyway, but that's how I dictate who's
We
my
don't play
favorite.
favorites in our family. Just like church, we don't have favorite members. We don't have favorite children.
Some days we may just say you're my favorite.
You
It
do have a
depends.
favorite dog, and it is obvious. Yes. You have a favorite dog, and we have 2 dogs. We're Great Southern Baptist pastor and pastor's wife. We have Lottie and Annie,
Yes.
and you have you play big time favorites with Annie. It's really sad.
Yes.
Even the kids are like, poor Lottie. Mom only loves Annie. So
I don't really like animals too much.
you
So the
don't.
fact that
you
I
love
like
that dog. I mean,
And
it's
it's
like,
funny because y'all like accidentally got Annie.
Oh, yeah,
No,
but-
no. She called me from like across town. It's like, you've got to get over here. This is the cutest dog. And ever since that moment, like the dog could be on the couch curled up. She goes, isn't that so cute? And I'm like, she never, like, this is not my wife. I don't know what's happening.
Oh, but now I do it because of the kids.
Well, now I tell the kids, I was like, hey, no kids are the favorite. Annie's the favorite. That's it.
So, yep.
All right, those are questions for the day.
That's all I got.
And that's our podcast for the day. Thanks so much for spending some time with us. Thank you, Stephanie, for helping lead this conversation today. As always, you can ask some more questions, secondfamily.church/thoughts. Let some folks know about this podcast. Appreciate all you listening in. And you can find it wherever podcasts are heard, also on our website and YouTube as well. So God bless you guys. Thanks for joining us. Take care.